everybody. My name is Sky and this is Kiko. We are doing the Ups and Downs podcast today. We are going to talk about histamines and health and mast cell activation syndrome. And so welcome, Kiko. How are you?
I am doing great. Thank you. Thank you for this podcast. And I'm really excited for today's topic, histamine and health.
Yeah, it's a hot topic, especially I think what we will talk about today as well is anyone essentially who has inflammation or disease is going to deal with histamines, because as much as we say we don't like histamines, they're actually what keep us alive and the body regulated, especially when it comes to inflammation. I mean, we exercise and we flush and we get blood rushing to our limbs. That's histamine. You kick your toe and histamines go to the area so that blood and white blood cells know where to go. Like, it is important. But what happens when there is an overload or lack of breakdown? So, yeah.
Yeah, I am super excited because I never actually questioned about this histamine issue or histamine and health, because I feel like it's not well talked about it. You said it's a hot topic, but I don't know if I heard it from anyone else than from you. And when you mentioned about some of the issue that could, cause, like the chart that we showed, it, it could be diagnosed with so many other things. So yeah, I'm really, really excited to dig deeper with histamine expert Sky. So today I'll be asking tons of questions. So it will be, I hope
Sure.
that it's clear and easy for others to understand. So maybe I can start off with questions. Yeah?
Sure, of course. Do you want me to just mention at the first off what histamines are to people?
Yeah,
Just
let's
so
do
they're
that. Yeah.
okay. So, as I mentioned, histamines go to a site that's inflamed as a response. We need them, we love them because they keep the body in check and sending, as I said, blood and white blood cells. So, what tends to happen is we eat something or we get a pathogen in the body, and the mast cell will latch onto it, which is a white blood cell. Okay, so it's doing its job. And to kind of clean up the area, it releases cytokines, prostaglandins, it releases lots of things, but it also releases histamines. And that histamine release can, as I said, send what needs to come, like specified cells to the body to help inflammation lower. But what the problem is when people have eaten high histamine foods, they've got a sore knee, a sore leg, a sore head, so there's histamines flooding. And then after that, they might have some fermented food, which we can talk about later, which is higher in histamines. All food has histamines, but fermented food is a higher in histamine food. And then all of a sudden, someone can get, and we've just bring this up here. Someone can get all sorts of symptoms. Okay, some of the common ones are the runny nose or the tightening in the chest, the sneezing, like allergy type symptoms. But some that aren't spoken about are diarrhea, nausea, headache, like the POTS symptoms, shortness of breath, low blood pressure, swelling of the lips or tongue. That's more common. Rashes like eczema, all of these. Now, if someone's got a chronic inflammation underlying and these mast cells are letting off these granules all the time with histamines in them, you will have this underlying, we can talk about in a minute. I have like chronic things which from a child having mast cell activation syndrome, thinking these were normal, like constant static vision, getting up and my blood pressure dropping really fast, dizziness, excessive flushing. Now, these are like my histamine symptoms and they're different for every person, but histamines can also get in the nerves. They're involved in neurotransmission, involved in the brain. I believe my psychosis and split with reality had a lot to do with histamines. And I actually believe most psychiatric illnesses have a histamine. I could go on about this for ages, but let's get into, Kiko wants to ask some questions about it. But that's the gist of it, is we need histamines, but when our bucket in our body gets too full, we will feel effects which are very, very uncomfortable.
Let's keep this. Maybe let's keep this chart. I think the visual
Sure.
image helps. So yeah, I wanted to ask you, when was the first time you felt? This might be a complicated question for you because what I wanted to ask, when did you realize something was off? Um, because you have gone through different levels of health journey. When did
Yeah.
you feel like this was connected to histamine?
Okay, so why I said histamines are like a hot topic, because everyone who has things like extreme PMS or POTS or mood disorders or chronic fatigue, what they
Sorry,
started to notice.
what's POT?
POTS is postural orthostatic tachycardia. So you stand up and all the blood drops from your head. Your heart will beat really, really fast, and then the blood pressure will drop, or the blood goes to the heart. So it's basically, and then you lose your vision, and because your blood pressure is so low. But when you first get up, your heart will be racing, blood rushes there. So they're all these generalized symptoms which people have been diagnosed for years with fibromyalgia. I think it's called PDM, which happens during periods where you actually get almost like suicidal, severe menstrual problems, depression, anxiety, chronic fatigue, and they've all been like, they don't have a actual cause, but people will suffer a lot with them. And then things like post-COVID viral infect, like, people getting really fatigued after viruses. And what people have now discovered, and they talk about, and I love TikTok because I love people constantly sharing their journey like we share here. And a lot of people are now saying they'll take an antihistamine, and all of these symptoms, which is known because it helps with things like hives and itching, but they're getting rid of headaches. Their severe PMT symptoms are going. Their chronic fatigue's lessening. Their dizziness is lessening. Their tinnitus is lessening. So it's like something that is more talked about now because there are tests, blood tests that can be done to see if you have a huge reaction to generalized things. It's not specific, it's just an overload of the histamines. But this still isn't correct in some people. Now, when I was 8 and I had chicken pox, I had normal chicken pox, but then mum always spoke about afterwards how I had these massive glands. I couldn't get up. I'd fall asleep in class. I would be chronically fatigued. And this sort of reaction happens. I've had shingles twice as an adult. And for about 2 years after, I get this same thing. Now, I'm still in the 2-year period of having the shingles recently. And the reason a virus can set it off is you get that histamine overload again. So, sorry, that general inflammation, which is histamines already at a higher level in the body. It's basically like the immune system is already on alert. And then you eat something like as I said, fermented foods, and all of a sudden your histamine bucket gets higher. And the histamines are really loud. So you get tinnitus, you'll get dizziness, which is, the POTS, you can get rashes, flushing, psychiatric issues. So it's gone throughout my life. Like, I feel like since I was 8 years old, maybe possibly before that, I had it as well. I remember being young, and you'll know things as a child. Like when someone puts like a wool or something on your skin, you get a real itchy sensation. That's histamines. But it seems for me, when I'm post-viral, it's quite extreme, especially for me, the chickenpox shingles virus. I didn't really get very affected post-COVID, but everybody's body is different. So it's gone through waves throughout my life. But essentially, if you look at all the issues I've had, which was the chronic pain, and that was related to my hormones, estrogen and histamine share a receptor site. So this is why women actually have massive problems around this with histamines, but it's never looked at. It's looked at in isolation as opposed to the body's already histamine overloaded. So that essentially is, even though I had a congenital disease, it's still mast cell activation syndrome. And any psychiatric issues, I had POTS, I had chronic fatigue. These are all underlying mast cell activation syndrome symptoms or high histamine issues that are in the body. And so, I feel like this was the chronic issue my whole life. But if you look in my past, every time I've had a virus, it has, especially the shingles or chickenpox, it has really just gone up, like notches and notches.
Okay, what were the symptoms from this diagram, the photos that you
So I
have?
get severe nerve pain, which I don't think is here and not talked about
Okay.
enough. And
Mm.
it's used, histamines are used in neurotransmitters, like they're neurotransmitters. Glutathione, which is like, and I've had ADHD my whole life, which is a really important neurotransmitter, which when is disrupted and not regulated is you'll have OCD, ADHD, you can get depression, but it's dysregulated. You're very dysregulated. Nerve pain is a big one for me. POTS, tinnitus like that, but tinnitus so bad that it's not only buzzing in my ears, but my vision is buzzing. And rashes, bloating, like that real, like if you'll hear a lot of people, I see people come up on TikTok all the time who have had bloating their whole life and they go on a low histamine diet and the bloating basically stops. Now, please know that doesn't mean the histamines, all those foods are the issue. These people already have an underlying high histamine level and then they're adding to it with their diet. We can get into it later, but why raw foods can work well or not well is there are very high histamine foods that are raw, but it's also generally lower histamine in certain areas because a lot of histamines form in cooked foods. It's really interesting. Inflammation can come from anywhere. I even think back to, and people can get their histamine flare-ups from electromagnetic fields, like just sitting. You hear very sick people can't be around televisions or microwaves. It's like the body's protection system is already on guard with whatever you've got going on, and then you go around these electromagnetic fields or high histamine foods or allergens in the air and molds, and all of a sudden the immune system and it can't take it. It just keeps getting higher and higher in these histamines.
Okay,
So,
that's
but
very interesting.
yeah,
So maybe you can take off that photo, and
yep,
maybe you can cover what are the okay. So maybe you can share when did you start introducing low histamine food in your
sure. So I believe the reason I healed in just 6 weeks on raw foods, we're talking about someone who was sick for 32 years of their life, 60 surgeries, 7 major organs removed. I've been diagnosed with well over 50 things. Every specialist has given me something else. 6 weeks, it's all gone. Like stomach issues, organs, my organs were failing, like my liver was failing, although I'd been drinking, is even my kidneys weren't working properly, my hair had fallen out. And I had a blood test within, I think, the 6 weeks or 2-month period. And for the first time in my life, all my blood markers were going up. Now, I believe it's because the foods and medications, let's start with the foods. So most foods that are processed are going to set off a histamine response in the body, like, preservatives, additives. It's like the body finally found raw foods. And I'm not talking so much raw foods like fermented foods or like maple syrup. I mean, that's not really raw, but I'm talking like just fresh as it is. Eat a carrot, eat a celery, eat an apple. And those foods, I think, I did not react to. For the first time in my life, it felt like my body recognized. It was familiar. Like everything, including, I think, cooked food, is usually it's done on a stove. You've got oils. You're changing the construct or the structure of the food, and your body goes, "What is this? What is this?" Histamines, histamines, and all of a sudden, I just ate the food. I still feel I can get a histamine response if I blend or do too much to the food. Like my body's like, "What is this?" It felt for the first time, it recognized it, even to the point where I think even I was aware that even like nuts or seeds, if we got them in nature with the hydration, they may be okay. But because they're dried, I could feel that wasn't doing as well. Now, when I first started eating the raw foods, is you're not eating a copious amount of food, okay? But as you get into this, so some of the foods I was eating at the start weren't reacting to, I think, the point that a lot of the cooked foods, that the bacteria changes in the foods and they start to release histidine, which is an amino acid which is broken down to histamine and used in the body. And this happens the older and more aged the food is, like cookies on a shelf, or, you know, you've last night's, I don't know, beef or vegan, you know, dish. And for the first time in my life, my body was not getting all of those histamines. And I think over time, foods that have high histamines are avocados and are bananas, but I still think when you're eating smaller amounts at the start, you're not getting such a load. And the load dropped. I stopped using like perfumed moisturizers. I was outside all day, so I wasn't getting these electromagnetic fields. I had lowered this histamine response massively. But over time, and I think reading what other people were doing, see, I mostly ate veggies to heal, and veggies are much lower in histamine than fruits. So people were trying to heal, and you hear these stories of people, it's usually about the 2-year mark. They're doing really well on raw, and now the next minute they've got like 10 banana smoothies in, and because they're eating much larger volumes, and they're like, I've got rashes, I've got problems, all these problems. And first and foremost is, I bet when you started this, you were not eating that amount of histamines that your body can't break down. The second thing is if you get too high into fruits, you are really limiting fats, and especially the omega-3s, and that is a lower inflammation protective pathway where the body's more regulated. So as you can see, is as much, and then people get in this mindset, it's detox, but you'll find that these people won't be able to stay on it, because they'll notice when they have greens or veggies, their response is much lower. And as I said, is if you go so high into fruit and stripped back, you'll also be reacting to everything in your environment. Any allergens, any pathogens, you're just not protected without omega-3s, which is it's part of it. But I mean, I can tell you what I do to stay histamine low, keep my bucket low. But that is when I think I think that was the question, is noticed that how to treat these histamines and how the food interacts, and kind of my journey that's gone on with those histamines.
Oh my God, it's amazing. I had so many aha moments while we were talking, and
good.
it's super interesting because when you got so sick and you were just alone in your apartment, and you are probably one of the very few or very rare person that you just reached out to carrots, or I don't know, zucchini, or just a very raw form, right? Usually when someone is so sick like you were, there was someone else feeding this person, but you were all alone, and you didn't reach out to cookie box. You just reach out to, you didn't have enough energy to cook, and you just ate what it is. And it's interesting because when I search for histamine, it does explain that those histamine level goes up for like aged food, like so yogurt, cheese, even food. It's not more processed, or as time goes, the histamine level goes up, which is super interesting, isn't it? Because you were mentioning about raw vegan, it could work and it could not work, and it could be like a detox form, but maybe with the bit of they needed to twist a little bit instead of going on with this detox mode all the time. So that was very interesting that you went through this with just by accident. You found raw vegan, and you said that you were able to heal yourself within just 6 weeks. You were able to get up and you started to connect the dots, right?
So why I think I could do that by myself and notice the difference was my liver, because I'd been drinking, even when I had been an alcoholic for a few months, is wine almost killed me, but vodka didn't. The histamines in the aged wine, whereas they're lower in vodka, even things like that, I looked back and, but very quickly, I felt so different. So I had a liver which was failing. I had severely low iron and they couldn't infuse me because my liver was so damaged. If you have low iron, you're going to have a mast cell activation type syndrome. You are really going to suffer with it. The body and immune system needs blood around the body to clear out all of this stuff. If you have low iron, you've essentially got low red blood cells in the body. So, and also the psychiatric side of it is so strong. Like what is so apparent is how much histamines regulate the brain. And you can go on YouTube and see doctors or psychiatrists talk about this is a new field in the sense that doctors love hardcore facts and studies that have gone on for years. This has only been around for about 4 years. So there's not many studies, but you get very forward-thinking doctors seeing someone with a histamine issues and having psychotic breaks. And there's that going on. And I just felt so horrible. Like I felt so horrible. But when I ate the veggies, I didn't feel so bad. If I reached for, I don't think at this stage I was trying my best. So there was still things which came from a packet like date balls and stuff, but they were having a twofold effect. My body wasn't breaking them down because it was just my iron was so low. I was getting blood sugar issues. Blood sugar, the best thing with histamines is you want to be in balance. As soon as the body is out of balance, you will eventually get histamine issues. Every time I have my body in balance, and that is blood sugar's good, iron's good. If you're walking around with a nutrient deficiency thinking I'm going to eat a ton of fruit and my body will fix itself, more than likely you're going to keep getting histamine issues. The more you wear into the body, the more the body will protect you, which is histamines. And the only true thing which keeps my histamine levels low isn't strictly the raw foods. It's how do I stay in balance? And for me, that raw food is what keeps me in balance. Making sure I have good sleep, making sure I exercise, but not over exercise, making sure I'm outside, but then not being outside like all the time where you're sunburnt, because sunburn can set off histamines. It truly is a issue with balance in the body. And even you'll hear me say this often with raw foods is don't rush in. Like go slow because you don't want to have these come up because it's traumatizing. It's very because you're not regulated. You'll have heart palpitations. You won't think clearly. You'll have like static vision, and it's better to not throw the body out of balance. It's like if I was to describe it in any way, it's your body is out of balance.
When was it that you realized you connect the dot with histamine level and with your health?
So TikTok. So on TikTok, I find it's really forward with any disease and things because people are on there seeing experts and they're just telling their stories. And I fall into the category of everything I've suffered from fell under histamines. Okay. As in, we can bring this chart back up. Oh, but might even be a better one here. So we got here headaches, diarrhea, hives, irregular heartbeat. Yes. Low blood pressure. Yes. What's this? Wheezing. Not so much. I didn't really suffer. I always had blocked heartburn. Yes. Premenstrual syndrome. Yes. Seasonal allergies. Yes. Food allergies. Yes. Asthma is actually a mast cell activation syndrome, but I never had that. Motion sickness. Yes. It just, so when I got diagnosed was after I had shingles and I went to the doctor. And after I had shingles, I could only get in watermelon. Every food on the food list set me off. And I went through my whole past. Well, my doctor knew in the past, but my past went back way much further. And he said it's 100% mast cell activation syndrome. We need to treat it as such. Now, here's the thing about people are going to ask, is there a way to take something? Okay, so if you take an antihistamine, you're only blocking receptor sites. You're not actually getting rid of histamines at all. You're just stopping the receptor sites of having such a reaction. You can use things like I do, which is magnesium. You can use quercetin, which helps break it down. DAO. Magnesium is actually a catalyst enzyme that helps with DAO. DAO is in the gut. Usually people with histamine issues have gut issues. It's like the first place it starts. Vitamin C, quercetin, DAO. Someone can tell me if they take something else. for it. But the problem is, if you are that bad with histamines, you will find that taking the synthetic supplement will set you off. So before this is the whole problem, is before the antihistamine, which is in extreme responses. And I think some people even use steroids, which is a suppression of the immune system, which is not a good thing long term. But taking the quercetin or the DAO or the high levels of vitamin C, even magnesium, if someone might go, I am allergic to that. My suggestion is, if you really want to see if it works and you're really bad, is start low dosing, very, very, very low, to bring your body's immune. So you don't have you have an immune response to everything. After the shingles, literally, I couldn't do anything. Most nights I'd have to wake up in the morning and order. I used to find you can flush it out with electrolytes like coconut water. I used to have to order a case of coconut water, drink, it would be like 3 liters. And that was the only thing that would stop it. You put anything in my body and it was reacting. People might find their worst foods for histamine issues are not even high histamine foods. So when I say high histamine foods, we're talking about things like pineapple, bananas. This is raw foods. Bananas, tomatoes, all the fun ones, avocados, anything fermented or aged, any food you make one night and you leave the dressing in the fridge overnight, histidine is going to be made. So everything needs to be really fresh. So you're starting to see why I was able to lower my response. And I believe, first and foremost, anyone who gets a really quick, great response from raw foods, they're getting hydrated and they're eating a much lower histamine diet straight away. So even no matter what disease you've got, that's going to really, really help. But when it comes to helping your body, it's almost like a jigsaw puzzle, because no two people have the same symptoms, have it flare up at the same time, are allergic to the same foods, are even allergic to the same foods a week later, or even the same treatment will work the same. It's a real puzzle as to how to get your body. But the one thing that really worked, and I believe would work for anyone if they have a really bad flare-up and they can afford and have access to it, is if you getting a case of coconuts, which isn't something that's very important. I'm not talking about, I have never ever used processed or pasteurized coconut water. I'm talking about fresh coconuts. Once again, that living food doesn't seem to have the histamines. And yeah, those electrolytes and just fluids. So
oh my God. Okay, Sky, full of information. So much question. So much great information you threw out. So, okay. Actually, what my question was, when did you realize? So, how many years ago or how long ago you decided to introduce low histamine foods?
So after the shingles, so when the doctor said, when I got the shingles and we went through and he said, you definitely have mast cell. So that was almost a year and a half ago, is when I truly diagnosed with it. But even before that, before I went to the doctor, I was very aware that what I had suffered from was what many people who have mast cell activation syndrome suffer from, telling their story on TikTok. And when I say that, I mean they're literally getting up every day, their new symptoms, what they're doing, what they're going through. And it was exactly what I went through.
This is so interesting. Yeah, this is so interesting. And it kind of, while you were sharing about the histamine and health issue, health balance, how I feel like this is like how we as a human are meant to eat. Like we are meant to eat something off of fruit vine, pick it up and just eat it. Vegetable, you just herb, you just pick it up, and it makes me feel so happy to hear that this is this is how we used to eat, how we are meant to eat. And so that's very interesting, all the information you shared. And also you mentioned about wine and vodka, because I've never been I never enjoyed drinking, although I drank a lot. I'm a social drinker. And I do remember when I drank wine, certain wine I would have a really bad reaction
Yeah.
to it. So that could have been the histamine reaction.
Especially people say cheap wine, they feel really, really sick after. And it's in my experience, the cheaper the wine, it's going to be the older the wine, right? It's just like dead. Essentially, the deader the food, the new bacteria is rebuilding and populating in that food. And the human body isn't going to withstand it. And I guess it's a contradiction in that fermented foods are supposed to be really gut healthy. And we're running off the premise. I have a theory, and this is totally out there, but I have a theory that we evolved to need bacteria like that, just the way that the human body there. I hope that there was one stage where we could there was so much oxygen in the air and we just assimilated what we ate so perfectly that we did not need to fill our bodies with bacteria to survive, because we get a lot of nutrition out of the bacteria now, but that is only because I believe the air is polluted and the food doesn't have what we need. So we've evolved and to need those bacteria. And it makes sense that we feed this bacteria fiber, so these prebiotics. But when we get into probiotics, we're actually putting in bacteria. We are taking things to a next level. And yeah, that seems
It's
to
sort
be
of, yeah, it's
hard.
sort of like a survival mode as a human being to continue
Yeah.
on living.
Yeah,
Then that it
it
was a
doesn't make
natural
sense.
food to continue. Yeah.
Yeah, the best I feel, like the clearest, most hydrated, eating food fresh from a garden takes my whole soul to another level, which is undescribable. But even eating whole food straight from wherever I get it is there's no way to describe that we aren't supposed to be eating that way. I truly believe people can heal in many different ways, but when you eat, like especially when you eat straight off a tree in nature, like it's like you're not even aware of anything going on except your present moment. Every step we take back from that, I believe we lose that, essentially who we are, that present feeling. We think we get, ruminate in our brain and we overthink, we get anxious, and all of that is histamine. We bring it back to histamines, but it is an inflammation. Like the least inflamed someone's going to be is living on a beach, pulling out coconuts and mangoes, swimming, sun and sleep outdoors under the stars.
Like a paradise.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. This
Oh,
is
I
such a
like
beautiful.
that.
I'm
Sorry, I
sorry.
just saw
Oh
that.
yeah.
I like that. We have more bug DNA than human DNA. I find that fascinating. I love that, Apple, because that's the truth. Because people always say there's no such thing as viruses. I'm like, well, there's no such thing as viruses, no such thing as DNA or RNA. They're very, very similar. And how it all came to be is, who knows? But yeah, we literally are who we are because of bacteria. And yeah.
Yeah. And I was thinking that this topic is so important because again, some people might think, and including me, I've gone through this detox mode, and I felt like I could never get out of it. And maybe it could be just the overload of histamine. Maybe. Yeah, go ahead.
What I think is really important for people who hear my story and healed myself very quickly to understand is I had felt tortured my whole life. Like, this person said this, I'm doing this, I'm trying this, but I feel terrible. And then I'm trying this, and I've read this. And all of a sudden my brain doesn't work properly. I'm alone. And I start to eat these foods and they make me feel love. Like, this actually doesn't make me feel bad. I don't have to hurt myself. And I'm like, this made me feel not so good. So maybe not as much of that. And if this is all raw foods, so it's the fresh foods. I feel love. I'm outside in the sun. Oh, I feel so loved. And I'm like, when people call, I could only be on a call for a little bit because I wanted to feel love. And then I'm blown away. Like, one of the biggest shocks for me was when I was able to read that people are saying you're supposed to basically torture yourself into this. So you're not supposed to love yourself into a raw diet. You're supposed to literally 180 days on watermelon, I don't know, 50 days on green juice. You got to push through, you got to suffer. The
Yeah.
whole reason I know I healed was every choice I started to make after raw food sat in love. It was like a love compass. Is I only did what, and if something was too strong, too not enough, I'd have a bit of avocado or peanut butter and go, oh, I feel good again. I changed my compass from self-destruction to self-love. And it's another great way to stay out of histamines. I feel how I got shingles was when I'd been doing watermelon basically only all day and a salad at night, trying to do watermelon for days, losing weight, getting stomach cramps, but going, this is it. Like I had talked myself into this is it, doing great. Most of it was watermelon. And then by the time I got shingles, I could only digest watermelon and grapes. And I'm so distressed that I'm craving. And this is when my iron got really low. So anytime I've come out of self-love compass, I haven't, well, I've ended up in a histamine dump for years. I'm coming out of it now. But my greatest suggestion is, and this is how I coach, is when you find raw foods, you're finding your love compass. You get away. We've lived an entire life of torture. We really have, and you're creating a new pattern. So just say this new pattern is, yes, you felt like crap on the juice, but then you felt really good. You've now got this pattern as your new compass. So you'll be like, oh, all day I'll eat food I don't like, and at night I'll have this, and eventually you binge. If you binge, you'll get a histamine flood.
This love compass is a very deep. It could be. There's so many layers in when you just say love compass. We can dig in. So we can. There's so many layers that we have to dig in, because what does love compass means? But let's not. I don't mean to all focus on our histamine and health.
Yes,
So
we've
back
got,
to health. Yeah, so maybe that's another topic. That's
we can
I
we
love that.
can do
Love
that.
compass. Yeah, yeah, love compass. Apple, they said that as well. Yeah, and it's just Sky and I, we try to encourage people on listening to yourself, right? Because Sky as and me, being on a fully raw, high raw vegan, and I have been fully raw vegan this year, and I feel like again, we can use the information to inspire us and educate us. Educating us is very important. So, getting information if you are inspired and incorporating. But yeah, when you do this long term fast with so-called guru who tells you this is the only way and you have to keep on pushing, and you forget where you were. You're just listening to outsider who doesn't even know your journey. And I'm not judging people who are doing it. I'm sure they are saving a lot of people. But yeah, it comes back to what Sky was mentioning on love compass, right? That you need to check on yourself.
Yeah. I think I feel like I even get caught up in it. I know I go back to this love compass, but it's a good way to not get a histamine overload or any overload in the body. Is even when I first healed, I start, because I've got no other voices around me. It's just me and my feelings. I would even go to the bin and go to trash can, I think you call it, and put in something. And I'm like, oh, I started to feel bad because this food belongs somewhere else. Like it was compost. And I started to know that that feeling is always there. Look, I feel like disease and histamines are just out of alignment of what we are supposed to do as humans, but also the journey we're supposed to be on. It's like a redirect. When you've gone to, like, think about it. I was doing all watermelon and grapes, then couldn't digest anything, and even the foods my body was craving, I then couldn't get in. I'd gone off. And then a lot of people tell you you've done it wrong, push harder, you're getting
Yeah.
and I just think, is that what feels right? We're so disconnected as a society from what feels right. We need histamines to tell us when we've got ourselves into trouble. And histamines are a good thing. Once they shut off, you're usually going to get some sort of disease, which is not very, very pleasant. You always find people who have histamine issues are very sensitive, as in they're empaths. They're very sensitive to energies. And people who are blocked may not feel these histamine flares or changes in the body. They wait till they get a massive disease and a massive shock. So it's also good to know that your body's just telling you what it's got going on
Yeah.
at this
So
time.
yeah, so important. Put your focus back to yourself and check on yourself. So let's go back to like food. What could cause histamine? You've mentioned some
Sure.
already, but may I share my story? And
Of course, sorry, I didn't even ask. I'm just going off here.
no, you're the expert, so I want to make sure that people are getting more information from you because you explained it so well. But I'm not sure if I have a histamine imbalance, but it seems to be, well, since Sky mentioned about histamine imbalance and you introduce you always share histamine low histamine foods. And I think my first realization is that over almost 3 years ago, I've noticed that I was reacting to so many foods, and I was fully raw at that time. And I'm thinking like, what could cause it? And we sort of become blind when we see what's supposed to be a healthy food, but it's a little more complicated. Is broccoli good for everyone? It's you have to look at the whole history of what this person is going through. So anyway, I've noticed that miso, my own homemade miso, was causing some skin flare-ups, and that was very difficult for me to understand because not only miso, I mean, I'm Japanese. I was born and raised, and I grew up with miso soup, right? And I started making my own miso with, everything organic, made with love. And I was eating that, and I noticed that some skin flare-ups. And this was very hard for me to accept, and maybe that's related to histamine because aged food or fermented food, it could flare up histamine. But something interesting though, because I make my homemade soy yogurt, and I don't seem to have any flare ups with that. So yeah, I need to double check every time. Yeah, you want to comment on that, Sky?
So each of those makes different bacteria, and at different stages of the fermentation process, different bacteria is present. And as we age, the more bacteria that seems to have a histidine. But yogurt may grow different strains of bacteria which don't affect you personally. So I think that's really important. What people should know as well is fermented food will have the lowest histamine level, histidine level, when you first make it. So what I was doing, and I was still kind of reacting, but I mean, I might try again, might not, is making like sauerkraut. And by day 3 or 4, you start eating it instead of waiting 2 or 3 weeks. So you can try when you do your miso. I'm not sure how soon you eat it. But as soon as the fermentation process is started, the bacteria is different. It's always changing. But aged bacteria has a higher level. So it's something for someone to try, but it's good that we find it really hard in this world, and especially being back in society again, to be different. We want to be part of a community, and even in this community, it can feel like all the people we see and follow on social media, including myself, is we do the plant-based bundles are on right now. So if you haven't checked out the plant-based bundle, have a look in Kiko and my bio. You can get it there. But I'm very honest about recipes in that I don't do them every single day. I like them a couple times a week. The simpler I eat, the better I do. And I think that's what it is the best thing you can do for yourself as a raw foodist is get onto raw foods and eat as simply and as light as you possibly can. Okay. And then making sure you get a variety, but don't overcomplicate it. Don't put like 50 things in a bowl and plus then make a 50 thing dressing. go really simple. And then as you add things in, you not only learn about the histamine inflammatory response that your body has, you learn a lot about yourself. When you eat very light, you really get in touch with who you are. And that's a nice place to be. I find the further we get away from that light eating is we all want to group around again and get answers. And do I need to take this? And now have I got this missing? Well, of course you've got something missing. If you've cooked potatoes, the potatoes have changed. You just say you roast potatoes. That black stuff around the outside, the oil which was synthetically processed, it's not in its whole form. You will find the more you don't eat the whole foods, the more you will seek out supplements, herbs, things to fill the void. If you just eat simply, you have a huge confidence in yourself and the food. So I always say to people is learn who you are, eating like simply. I would love to have like a healing retreat where people can't come for a week. They have to come for like 3 months. They have to leave their family, their reality, essentially their phones, everything. And most of the time is spent outside, grounded, and just eating food really simply. And even there's a lot of space, like spending a lot of time alone, because that's how I healed, right? Because the person you are in that state is a person, even when I go back to when I healed myself at my sickest, that person back then is like the truest form of who I am that I probably will never experience again. But I did know it at the time, like as well. Like when I healed myself, I did know what I was going through was absolutely remarkable. And if I could get through that, I could get through anything. But for people to know themselves, because you'll know when it's histamines, then you'll know when you've done something too much, but none of us know who we are.
Yeah. So is Sky's Wellness Center coming up? That's 3 months.
I would love so much to do something like that, because people can't just go for it. The thing with retreats is that it becomes a bit like a holiday. It's still an escape, right? You're leaving your life, you're having all these gourmet food cooked. I want people to go to the garden and pull out what they feel like. If they want that night, sit in the garden and eat your cucumbers if that's your calling. But we don't know our calling because we've got kids, we've got grandkids, we've got stresses, we've got jobs, we've got phones. But, because my brain could not see television or take in that information or read for 2 years. So it was like a blank slate. I couldn't access my memories. And the best thing I can think is that if someone wants to heal themselves, plant your butt in nature and just eat the food raw and get away from people. I know that sounds terrible, but you've got to be strong to be around people. Stress brings out histamine.
Yeah, that's amazing though. That if you could make this dream come true of 3 months, making it because there are a lot of wellness like a retreat for maybe 30 days, but 3 months that would really ground you with this lifestyle, right? Yeah, it's hard to go back to where you were, what you were eating or your lifestyle if you have gone through this 3 months retreat.
My dream is so much so that I have this idea that they're all over the world, and people, because I've been in psychiatric units, and when you leave one, you can't, it's not one day you're in one and you leave one, you have to transfer out. So slowly you have home days. Now, what I know about doing that is I don't agree with all psychiatric units, but the practices they teach you in there embed in you as you go back. So if you had them all over the world, is people wouldn't have to be shocked back into their reality and not be able to cope and go back to binge eating or whatever it is, their bad foods, is that you go home for a few days and then you go back to the retreat. And so people slowly get used to, see, this is a story about how even in darkness you learn light. Like even in psychiatric units, you learn that there's things like, because besides the medication is there's sleep hygiene. So they give you these packs where at night at a certain time they give you obviously your meds, but you have a tea, you have your hot shower, televisions are turned off. And although when you're at that acute, it doesn't fix it. These are all skills that when I got home, if you keep implementing, you put on your pajamas to trigger the brain that it's sleep time, is when you get home, it's a shock. But when you come out of it slowly, so I would love for people to not just fly back home and be disconnected, but slowly come out of it. And then maybe they're like, I need to do another 2 weeks at that, wherever the retreat is. That's my dream, is that these
Oh
are
my God.
everywhere. So I
Who
put it
wants
out
to?
there today to the universe.
I would love to be part of it. And who wants to, fund Sky's Wellness Center?
That's right,
Hey,
my world wellness center. Well, it's got to start somewhere, right? We can have one in Japan and Cronulla to start.
that's amazing. That's
Australia.
amazing. Oh
Yeah.
my God, that's so wonderful. Yeah, Apple Date, thank you so much for your message. I would love the long-term residential retreat. Yeah, I cannot wait for that to come out.
Well, Apple wants to
Um,
do it too. Apple sounds like she's already started it. So we imagine we could all set
oh,
them up, and it'd be like, and it's one of those things where I don't want to be like, get this, buy this, it's cheap. The person has to want to invest in themselves to go
mhm,
there. And it's like, and then also like when you're investing in yourself, you start to learn the value of investing in yourself. And I learned this when I
mhm,
got well is when, because I didn't have a whole heap of money, is when you pay for good things, good starts to come back if you show up.
mhm,
So if you pay for the raw food and you made the raw food and then I ate the raw food, is although I was spending my disability money, is I started to realize I'd be able to make my own money because I
mhm.
was, starting to feel better. So it's like one of those
That's
things where you
amazing.
go, I invested in this, I'm going to get well now. And like, yeah. So
That's amazing.
I've gone off
Yeah,
there, but yeah.
no, that's beautiful. That comes out with this histamine and health topic. We came up with this Skies Wellness Center, and we're open for this investors or whoever is interested in joining. That's beautiful. But this is also, I think, in every week what we talk about, it all comes back to um, love compass that you mentioned. I love this new vocabulary, love compass, be in touch with yourself, you are in your own journey, and no one else knows your true journey, and don't let anyone take over your own health journey. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I do think that's a perfect journey. you know I used to blame myself, like over 20 years of being high raw vegan. I've been fully raw vegan, and then there was some point that I said, I feel off balance, and maybe it might have been the off balance of histamine level, or it might have been omega 3 and 6 fatty acids. But because I didn't have you know people like real raw vegan friends near me, I said, oh, it's just easier for me to go on a cooked food. I started
Yeah.
with light, steamed food. And then, we just went sort of like a down on the negative spiral, eating out and more processed food. And yeah, I've already done so many times that I don't want to go through that process. It's not coming out of self-love for me, and I'm not judging anyone to do, to eat or whatever they want to do. I do think everyone's journey is perfect as they are. But for me, I don't want to go through that because I've already done so many times. And I love today's information because again, Sky was the one who, you know, shared that what it could have been histamine's issue. So what I thought is fermented food or aged food, I thought that would be a good thing for me. But maybe you know, it's good to check on me. Maybe it's true that certain
Yeah.
food that I just left over in my fridge, it tastes okay, but maybe same food, first day fresh, that was good. I didn't have any issue, but maybe 2 3 days down on the road, maybe I have a different reaction. So I still need to check on myself, what I eat, how I feel after. Do I feel great?
I think checking on yourself is like the greatest thing. Like,
Mm,
check on yourself. Don't check Google or ChatGTP what your symptom is. Check on yourself. Keep a journal of how you're feeling with certain foods. What I notice is I'll have a bit of fermented food and I'll think I'll like it and I'll love because it's more stimulating. anything away from raw food will feel stimulating. But I notice then when I get back on the raw food, the difference is I always feel like I'm being bitten, and I don't know it when I've got it, like under my neck here, around here, because you can't usually get like you can get like a scratching or ringing or sore ears, and that's the histamines aren't being broken down around that area and aggravating the area. And it's really good to just check in on yourself. What and how do I feel? And on the cooked food note is the world we live in, we eat, we reflect where we are, okay, and what's going on in our life. So if there's periods of time that we're eating a lot of cooked food and we don't feel it's like serving us, you'll find your life will change when you have raw foods, just simply because what we eat is really a reflection of the world. And the world is quite dense. Like the world is not Garden of Eden with everyone eating fruits and we're reflecting love off each other. We can get quite stressed. And the one thing I have noticed with raw foods is I can't sit in a space that doesn't resonate with me. Like if I start a new job or I start someone new in my life, and if it does not match, it will be so loud. I will get so sick. It will have to go. Like, which is a blessing, which we can
Me
go, oh no,
too.
now I need to eat bad food to match this energy. And that's probably what I did most of my life. But it's nice we're doing, like, we can cleanse stuff out that doesn't serve.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree what you said. But you know, the time is running. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, can I just quickly, I just wanted to touch on what I do to balance myself, if it might serve
Yes.
anyone. I did speak on some things that will help raw foods. Now, the histamines in foods are not the problem, because you will see people walking around to eat high histamine foods every day. It's about a bucket. You have a bucket every day of histamines, and you want to keep that moderate to low or not impacting you. So if you have generalized inflammation, your histamine bucket will not be able to get very full because you'll already have histamines. So the idea is to get rid of a histamine issue is, of course, start on a low histamine diet. I have a link, please DM me. I have a little kit I've already made of what is Marcel, what are histamines, what foods can you eat, all of that. So start there, okay, because it'll lower your histamines. But you have to get good sleep, low stress, movement, not too much. Get out away from allergens, because mold will set you off. Electromagnetic fields will set you off. So get a lot of time in nature. Keep hydrated. Now, there are some things that can help. As I said, you can take quercetin, you can take vitamin C, you can take magnesium, you can take probiotics, you can take enzymes, you can take DAO, diamine oxidase, which breaks it down in the gut. But if you went and took all of these at once, thinking it'll fix you, that will in itself, for me, boom, it will just cause a histamine. So it is a bit of a balancing trick. And also, if I have a big flare, I said coconut water. What I do for what's helped me is not over exercising, not too much stress in my life. Rest. I've worked out I need, instead of doing too much exercise, I need more rest, because any inflammation, even metabolic waste, is high histamine. I take magnesium, a large dose at night. That empties my bowel. I find if I overeat or my bowel gets full, high histamine response. I do a probiotic and enzyme, which I don't know how much that helps. The magnesium has really helped. I don't overeat. I don't have a stomach, so I have a low level of DAO. But see, even things like taking, I'm having a mental block here. I think it's called, it's basically hydrochloric acid to help your stomach break down foods. That helps some people. So maybe working with a naturopath, a coach, to get your balance back. But for me, it's keeping food light, lower histamine, not all low histamine, but lower histamine, magnesium, and lots of rest and low stress.
Yes,
So
amen.
that's what I do for me. But as I'm trying to say, and we're saying here, is it's a very personalized journey. I love that JJ wants an affiliate link for the retreats.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Fantastic.
that's what she's saying. So we'll get
The
there. We will
universe,
make this happen.
yeah, universe is giving us already some information to go on with this. dream wellness center of Sky's Wellness Center. So yeah, I'm definitely getting the fresh coconuts, like tons of it,
Yeah,
maybe on the case. I love that. So another, would you like to share maybe few more low histamine fruits and veggies that you like
sure.
recently?
Sure. So we didn't even get onto omega-3s, but I've really upped omega-3s in my diet because when you look at research, and Dr. Brooke Goldner is really good at explaining this, but other doctors are as well, is when you take omega-3s, basically the body is built from fat. So the cells of the body are phospholipids. The lipid part, if we can get coming from omega-3 instead of omega-6, is the structure of the cell, instead of being like rigid like this and like flinging things out randomly and the wrong things kind of going in the cells become like elastic and happy and fluid,
Mm,
and like the proteins on the cell just glide across, so everything is much smoother or
mm,
lower inflammatory. The myelin sheath in the body as well have are built from fat, and we want that insulated because a lot of you'll find it's a lot of nerve dysregulation,
mm,
histamine issues. So I found having a huge amount of the omega-3 chia and flaxseed. Sometimes oil doesn't do as well for me, but if I
mm,
can't digest, I will use it,
mhm,
flax oil. What I noticed, and Kiko, we spoke about this, or you brought this up, is how easily having just another nut in your day, even hemp or walnut, which are higher in omega-3s, or
mm,
cashews, almonds, or higher in omega-6 to omega-3, and you get into the really high omega-6 ones, how easy you can throw out your balance. A healthy person
mm,
should have perfect ratio of, or a balanced ratio of 3 to 6, or you can have 4 parts 6 and 3 parts 3. But we are like, most of society is getting up into like 20 to 1. So 20 parts of 6 from animal products, dairy, even processed nuts and oils versus 1 of 3. I've really noticed if I let that omega-3 balance go out, all my
mm,
histamine issues flare up. Should have spoken about that. Probably the underlying factor which keeps me away from having mast cell and histamine issues is I predominantly go to use omega-3s, chia or flax, for every single recipe. And then
mhm,
randomly, if I want a few pumpkin seeds, I'm not too hard on myself because all my blood tests are perfect. We're just talking about a
mm,
generalized level of inflammation. And as it comes for foods, is I find veggies are great, like celery, beetroot, carrot, zucchini, cucumber. They're all low. Um, Tomatoes
mhm,
are higher, but sweeter ones. The baby ones don't seem to be as reactive. Now, citrus is a
mm,
histamine liberator. So it's not that they have the histamines and histidine, it's that they get into your system and cause these mast cells to release the histamines. So then
mm,
your bucket gets full. But I find acidy things will set off my tinnitus and histamines, but much better with the omega-3s. Avocados, I was okay with them. The thing with avocado and bananas and being high histamines is they're slower digestion, for I noticed, because they're denser than a lot. Well, if you've been
mm,
raw vegan a long time, you notice a lot of food is water. And being denser, they will sit in the gut longer. You're needing that DAO
mm.
to segregate the histamines more. So, and having even a little bit of fermented food for me, it always will set me off, but I'll probably still randomly have it. So
Mhm.
they're the way. But as I said, I can put the link. It's better if I hang on, if I can hear. Here, I'll post it here. I'm not sure who can see it. If not, send me a DM. So there's a Google Drive there that I top up with all new histamine information all the time. So there's lists of what to eat, what not to eat, what it is, what causes it, and there's a great list of things that will help you.
That's amazing. The free, amazing information from Sky. Thank you so much, Sky. You're
That's
so
all
generous
right.
always, always sharing, out of love. And I really appreciate you showing up and, keep on showing up and shining as always. I
Oh, I
haven't,
love doing this with you. I love this ups and downs podcast of the
oh, me
realities
too.
of what's going on.
Me too. We actually ran out of time, But I had so many more questions, so we might have to do it like a part two. And I
We
really
can do that.
appreciate Gigi or Apple all day. I don't know if anyone else messaged us. We have this plant-based bundle going on. I think it's over in few hours.
It
So
is. It's over
get
in a
it
few
from
hours.
get it from Sky's link or my link on Instagram. It's an amazing offer. I'm very confident to say that you will thank us if you get it. So yeah, if you get it right now, if you have not got it, there's just so many information, not just raw, but affirmations. There's like juice and juicing information, smoothies information. I think yoga information. It's just abundance of information. So I hope you reach that out. And anything else, Sky, before we close?
I'm about to interview Jennifer Sickley in about 40 minutes now, and she's in the bundle, but she healed herself of all of these histamine type issues, the polycystic. This is like polycystic. When people list these, so menstrual problems, polycystic ovaries, chronic fatigue, what is that? Allergies, blood sugar issues. That general package is like the histamine boat. So anyway, she's healed herself. So I'm doing that interview. And yes, go grab the bundle. It's amazing. Even this cooked food recipes, a lot of them are all raw or can be raw because they're all dressings and a lot of them are smoothies, and the sauces you just make raw. If that's your jam. If you want it cooked, have it cooked.
Yeah, definitely. And Sky's channel is my favorite YouTube channel. So yeah, I'm definitely, I always look for what's coming, and I can't catch up because she's got so much, and it's
And you
thanks
even
to
get the raw because I'm raw, and you get it raw. You get me and my blender. Did you see that? My blender exploded.
Yeah.
The next day I'm doing an interview and I look up and there's food hanging off the roof from the day before.
I was getting so nervous when you didn't, you used the tamper, because that happened to me so many times, and oh my God, yeah.
Okay. Well, we watch me and we learn so you guys don't have to stick the tamper in and the food explode out. So that was like, and then the next day I look up and I'm like, ew, there it is. There's the dressing and the sauce. So anyway, thanks guys. We'll be back next week.
Yeah, I have learned so much, and I hope that everyone also was able to resonate. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week.
Bye. Thanks,
Bye.
Kiko. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Sky. Thanks for